This is an extension of my last video, and basically I seek to try to gain an understanding as to why uh, the English version of Matthew 19:9 is so complex to understand, um, while the Greek is so simple. Um, Seems like it would be the other way around. How to advance in simplicity instead of create complexity. In the Greek, it is so simply stated as divorce not for porneia, and in English, King James, it's so complexly stated as divorce except it be for fornication. Um, Equates essentially to adultery if you divorce for other reasons. Um, and other English versions include, instead of using the word fornication, it uses sexual immorality. So divorce except for sexual immorality. So where does the complexity come from? Well, obviously, one of the complexities is an author back in 1516 wrote a Greek, uh, um, essentially New Testament. The name of the book is called Textus Receptus, and it became a very substantial influence in further uh, translations of the Bible from that point on. Uh, by happenstance, 1 year later, Luther disputed the Catholic Church position uh, with his 95 theses, one of which just happens to coincide with the essence of a significant difference between the original Greek compared to Textus Receptus, which is disputing the supremacy of the Pope in church authority, basically. You could go to take notice that, um, well, the cause of the Church of England being established was based on no divorce. In other words, Henry VIII disputed the Catholic position of no divorce, and established his own church, Church of England, all on one dispute. Of course, came forward with other differences later, but um, even the Catholic position became somewhat modified by the Council of Trent in the mid 1500s, establishing the Vulgate as official Catholic Church Bible, and even that somewhat aligns with Textus Receptus. Essentially, what it becomes is the Textus Receptus led the way, enabling a Protestant Reformation, basically. Um, they parallel each other in time frame and purpose and interpretation. Uh, the uniqueness to uh, part of the Protestant Reformation study is that they like to differentiate themselves as focusing on the subject of salvation and the differences between Protestant and Catholic on salvation. The Protestant believe that it's uh, believing in a faith in Christ, that He paid a price to enable you to enter into the gift of grace, and that differentiates itself with Catholic in one particular aspect, and that being that the dispute largely was over whether salvation includes or excludes your works, and your works happens to align with what you do, and your what you do aligns with your I do, and thus your marriage vow. Such was the Lutheran in particular, and Baptist largely. Um, John Wesley brought forward some differentiations in uh, losing your salvation and thus to a degree works, and et cetera, et cetera. There's a particular study called soteriology that studies the differences in denominational distinctions that can be expanded upon if you choose to look at it. Otherwise, it's as simple as that your spousal marriage is not associated with your salvation versus it is associated with your salvation. But with emphasis, I say that before there is a study of denominational distinctions, there is the importance of looking at biblical translation and transcription, and the difference between the original Greek versus the Textus Receptus, because Textus Receptus changed the word not into adding one little Greek word variation to it by adding the word if, and then it becomes a conditional divorce enabler. Oddly, if you were to study the European wars in the 1500s and etc., you'd find that largely they were religious wars. The difference between the ruling authority of a country that encouraged a religion ultimately became wars between Protestant and Catholic. And that parallels a uniqueness inside your home on what was the war about. Well, it was about divorce versus not divorce. And that is a huge significance. Obviously, it's rather true that depending on who you ask, you might receive a different answer. If you were to ask the Pope, well, especially of the day, what the cause for all the European wars, or most of the European wars, the answer would be that they were largely religious wars on the difference between holding authority in the country by way of Protestant versus Catholic. And I can't help but notice the extremeness to killing over religion. I can't help but take notice of as I compare the European religious wars to your spousal relations in your home, and how the European wars resemble your home front.